utilizes for an upcoming event. So yeah, so it's an event where students are able to meet with like women from the Veterans Women's Shelter and like kind of like comfort them and whatnot. This was kind of interesting because it's not an event necessarily open to the entire campus. Though anyone can participate in this event, they just haven't like gotten to the point where like they've done like large scale advertising and whatnot. But it seemed to the committee overall to be like for a good cause and promoting a good event that we'd like to support essentially since we have so much money. We just recommended that they do like more advertising and open it up to like the student body in general next time. But so that was the first one.
Wait, so was anyone here committee, anyone who's actually on the committee, thoughts?
I mean, I thought the same thing, and I think my issue was I said at our meeting that like they want to grow, but they didn't really think of like spending extra money on advertising beforehand. It was more like they've just been through word of mouth, and I don't know how far that'll like get them, I guess.
So you would recommend them going forward to ask money for advertising then?
Right.
Okay.
Just a comment. Jean was in charge of this last year. And then it kind of became Mrs. Alberg, she'd go, but I don't know her actual name. Yeah. But I don't even know kind of became her baby. And now other students run it, but I know that I think Jean, when she comes back, will be very involved in this again. And I know when she left, it kind of got a little unorganized. So I think that's kind of why they're not advertising as much.
Okay.
Any other comments? No?
So that was that one. And then this one is looks like an event that's hosted by Trinity Progressives. And essentially what it is, it's they want to put on a documentary called Women's Rising that they're going to be showing in the basement of Northbrook. And it's just in celebration of, I want to say it's like some sort of like Women's Month thing coming up. But it seemed like a pretty reasonable request. And they've been doing they're going to be doing advertising with it because that part of that $250 for the licensing fees to screen the film.
250
or $295, sorry, yeah, $295. Also comes with like advertising materials. So it's Progressives co-sponsoring with Amnesty International.
Comments, opinions?
I've already seen it on Leroy.
What?
It's already been on Leroy.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'd entertain any motions for concept, maybe.
Motion to approve the concept of girls.
Can you speak up? I can't hear. Guys, you gotta speak up since no one's sitting in
I
front.
motion to approve the concept of Girls Rising event.
Okay.
Seconded.
Is that, make sure the camera's on, right?
It is.
Okay, good. All those in favor of Trinity Progressives Girls Rising event, the concept of it, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And all those who abstain, okay, passes. Anything concerning the budget amount, comments?
I motion to fund the event in full.
Seconded.
All those in favor of funding $295 for Trinity Progressives Girl Rising, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. All those who abstain, cool, passes. On to the next one. Okay. We talked a little bit about concept, but I take any motions.
I motion to approve the concept of life lunch.
Seconded.
All those in favor of Delta Epsilon Iota's life launch session in celebration of women's voices, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. All those who abstain, that passes. On to the amount.
I motion to fund this event in full.
Second.
All those in favor of allocating $600 to Delta Epsilon Iota's life launch sessions in celebration of Women Voices event, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. And all those who abstain. Awesome. We're done with funding for the night then. A quick comment. I'd like to congratulate everyone who won their elections last week. I know we only had like one real competitive one, but for everyone who did win or beat no confidence, congratulations. Sean. That reaction, I'm not gonna lie, was one of the funnier moments of that day.
Yeah?
When he called you.
Yeah, that was not funny.
I thought it was great.
You
No,
know,
Gabby even did
I
it to me
enjoyed the
too.
text messages. That was the best part preceding that, in which numerous members of ASR were being questioned about different things. That's what I found hilarious.
yeah, I thought it was hilarious how like I was trying to do my homework, but I couldn't because like, Evan, you're losing to no confidence. So, you know, there's that. That was my favorite part of that day.
Yeah.
I mean, Senator
My favorite part was
Adler
you
was
asked for
very nonchalant when I called him. He was just like, yeah, awesome. I could see the tension in his tone. Okay, so we have our meeting today. Mr. Green, Mr. Logan. This is about the bollards specifically. I mean, you can probably go on to more generalized topics from there. So any comments before that? Anyone want to elaborate, brainstorm, or any general comments about anything else?
Every time we have food, can you send it in
Yeah.
so we know not to eat dinner before the
That always happens.
like that's such a silly thing, but could you
No. I don't like
I'll remind our person to send that out.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else in general about people, the speakers we're going to be having tonight?
Would these be some people we need to talk to about blue lights on campus?
Yeah, you have that up,
Caroline.
Mr. Logan. Probably Mr. Freeman too. So the theory is like he deals with everything involving administration. So I mean, there's some campus planning involved with that, but I know that's also been state thing, which is TUPD. But it can't hurt.
I mean, yeah, no, I've spoken with him actually about the topic, and basically, like, he's in favor of the idea of it, but this would be like an ongoing thing that would continue into next year, because that's just the nature of like the capital equipment fiscal cycle, is those requesting a peak credit in the fall. So it's something that like you guys as like a Senate going forward would need to like stay involved in, but like I would think it would be a good idea to bring it up within there now, just so that you know, keep putting it on the radar.
Would these also be the people we need to ask about future parking plans, like the parking lot
Yes.
on campus?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are the people who deal a lot with the task and the proposals, I think. I also say, tell your next ASR president to keep asking the president. And when I asked him, when it came to parking garages, I know there were a lot of logistical problems concerning that, in terms of like, if you do a parking garage on campus, it would be better to go underground than go up, essentially, because that might be considered an eyesore, but there's like ecological factors with it, but that would be something that, or I guess our president-elect here would have to bring up, because that, like, I would say the one thing with the blue lights is I did hear a lot of skepticism with the president about that. I mean, I think I told you guys it was kind of ironic. It was right after, like I told him about that, and he was essentially asking why, like in terms of if there have been incidents or there statistics related to that. And then I brought up the bollards, and I asked him if he had any statistics about people getting hit by cars, and he did not, which I found very ironic.
Yes.
And I pointed out to him.
Grill President Oliver.
You're about to grad.
He's a very statistic-oriented man, I would say that. So,
Well, I mean, he's an economist.
he's an economist, and he has to deal with the budget every year.
We'll
So,
talk about that later.
but I would say definitely whenever that resolution. I mean,
Yeah.
this is
Waiting on some data from other schools about theirs.
even better. I mean, the more you can cite, the more numbers that you can logically put in.
Yeah.
It's an argument at the end of the day. That was why I pointed out some tiers on there.
So in terms of like lines of questioning for like how we approach this, like something I would in your place bring up is like the process through which all of this went down, and that there was basically like no student input or like community input at all.
I'm sorry, on what?
The bollards.
Okay.
Because like this is something that like very much affects students more than it does faculty and administration because it is on lower campus. There was just basically no like consultation at all. So like that is like our strongest point, I think. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, and also, you know, reasoning is always important to figure out for them in terms of like, if they bring up like, oh, we're afraid, you know, people getting hit, you say, oh, have people been hit there before? Like, has someone been struck by a car? Like that's actually a very important point to bring up is, you know, if they're afraid of that happening, but it's never happened and there's very little evidence to show that continues to happen, you know, the reality of what happened with the Ballards is that they changed how the discourse went down. Normally it's, they would bring the proposal to different components of the university justifying why they would do it. Instead, they erected it and then we have to give them reasons why to take it down. It should have been the other way around. But that's the nature of discourse with it now. And I would also say possibly bring up like ideas of discussion going forward. I mean, I'm not going to lie, these things aren't going to go down. Like, I would be very impressed if they did, but I don't see it happening, like, realistically. But I would say that's a good point is that I know it's changed a lot of ways they're going to interact with like the broader Trinity community when they erect these things. Like the president made that very clear to me. And that's something you should also, like in the course of questioning, is ask like, going forward now, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to open up sessions for the community where you reach out to them? Are you going to reach out to ASR, faculty, so on and so forth? Because that's important is learning from what happened with a previous circumstance and how do you remedy that going forward.
Yeah, Sean, what was the deal with them not allowing you to sit in on like a meeting? Which meeting were you
Master
doing?
planning.
Master planning. What were the reasons given for that?
There weren't any like clear reasons other than like they thought that I had made my position clear and that like there wasn't really much value in me being there, which I would disagree with because like the committee is entirely made up of faculty and staff.
Yeah.
So there was no student representation on it. And the
I
chair
feel
of the committee was like, it was his idea. So I mean, it was kind of like not a particularly fair hearing, I thought.
So,
yeah, I mean, I would think we should bring that up, especially because like just because someone like disagrees with you doesn't mean you should like not listen to them.
Yeah.
That's like a big.
And one thing I would say for things of that nature is the reality is there are just a certain set of, let's say, different committees that make rules in this university that in some fashion or another we're not allowed to sit on. So you usually have to lobby fairly hard at the highest levels to get onto that. So that's a good point. Bring it up. Question it now. But not in, like I wouldn't say an aggressive way, but in an inquiring way. Like, what is the reason for not allowing a student to be there? And then really probe at that. And, you know, like, I know for ASR, I think it was only a couple of presidents ago they allowed the ASR president to sit on the Student Life Subcommittee of the Board of Trustees. And they even just allowed that for Faculty Senate as well. Like, I don't sit in on any of their executive sessions. I don't sit in on, I mean, probably 70% of the normal trustee stuff. We're not even allowed to go to Faculty Senate meetings unless we're invited. And that's even like ones that are pertinent. Hello?
That's great.
You want to come in?
Yeah.
Yeah, please come in.
Perfect time.
Yeah. If you want to introduce someone, they come in.
Yeah, sure.
And Sean, I think it might be kind of useful just to like you start off the conversation with them, just because you probably have the most background, and you can kind of get everyone on the same page, and not just like shooting shocking questions.
Yeah.
Hello.
Mr. Logan?
How are you?
I'm good. If you guys just want to sit
Oh, yeah.
that's
All
all
right.
right.
Excellent. We have a projector and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Sure. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, that was a fun meeting.
Yeah, it is. You're well prepared.
Yeah. Well, that's the fund.
Yeah.
They were definitely like freaking out big time beforehand, though.
No, you didn't show. You did a good job.
There you go. So she's coming on there.
They didn't catch you any slack. They were tough.
Oh yeah.
Good committee.
All right. Do you have like a flash drive?
You know, this little thing's kind of a beefy drive. We'll see how that.
Oh yeah. If any of y'all are business majors, finance, student managed funds, accepting applications, just thought I'd give that shout out. Just remembered it.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, what am I looking for? I'm looking for PowerPoint. Where is it?
Should be if you maybe scroll down. Should be like a Microsoft, yeah, Microsoft.
I probably need my glasses would help. There we go.
There's got it for you. Yeah.
Sweet.
If you want like a chair or something, I can move that over here. If you want to sit like over here, I'd be good with it.
He doesn't want to sit up there, does he?
There you go.
Excellent. All right.
All right.
You go.
Great. So we've got Mr. Gary Logan, the Vice President of Finance and Administration, presenting today, and Mr. John Green, the Director of Campus Planning and Sustainability. The two administrators, I think Mr. Logan's first year here, previously at Southwestern, but been working very closely on essentially master planning on campus and also parking, anything you know, planning-wise, the construction, anything like that, I think would be good to talk about. But I'll let you go ahead and present.
All right. Well, thank y'all for having us here. I'll have to learn a little bit more about the history of ASR, probably not tonight, but as we move along, brand new here. I worked at Trinity many years ago, but I barely remember my name from that far back. That was 86 to 96, and that was a while back, right? Depends on how your perspective in life, that was a while back. Well, so part of, in my area, I'm over all of the accounting area, the business office operations, human resources, all the budgeting and planning at the university for long-term planning, both in financial side and on the physical facility side. The police department's in my area, physical plant, John's area, and sustainability and planning, conferences and programs, summer camps and stuff like that. What am I missing? That's it. That's probably kind of the run. So I have a lot of the administrative side of the house reports to me, including the facility stuff, which we're here to talk about tonight. And I'm not sure if you have am I here to answer questions? I'm not sure. I was invited here. I'm here at your disposal. I have a couple of things I'd like to say, but if
certainly, yeah, no, you can feel free to present.
Okay.
If you want to.
Well, I know that. So this conversation about the bollards has started quite some time ago. The university hasn't had a formal facility master plan. I don't know if we would say ever is right, but really haven't had as formal a plan as many institutions have. My predecessor started the process of forming that through a facility master planning committee that began meeting, I guess, John, a couple of years ago, probably, with the idea that we were going to develop a formal document, a facility master plan. That committee worked for probably a year to a year and a half or something like that, put together a document that was kind of principles that were guiding principles for that group and for the facility master plan development on campus. And I think there was a pretty good number of people involved in that whole study. There's a kind of a sub-study on residential life. There were students and faculty and staff involved in that study, and really trying to look at what are the uses of campus from student life and academic perspective, as well as other uses, vehicular traffic. Master plans get into where utilities go, you know, where your electrical and your chilled water pipes, where do they run under campus, how do you move traffic flow around, pedestrian and vehicular traffic. They're pretty big undertakings. It's always good to kind of have an idea of where you're wanting to go as an institution long term. When you decide to put a building down, for instance, on some place that you've thought about, oh, I have to get utilities over there, and you've been thinking about that in advance. So that was kind of part of what this group did, and they developed a document that was kind of a guiding principles with the idea that we were going to develop a formal facility master plan, which we're still in the process of developing. As you know, the university's been involved in a strategic planning process for quite a while, where that's kind of coming to a culmination, where the board is now considering approving that. I'm hopeful that that'll be approved here by the end of the next board meeting cycle, which is May. We're also at the same time working very hard to develop our assessment metrics. How do we know if we're successful in the strategic plan and all of the financial stuff that goes with that, which includes buildings that need to be renovated, new buildings that may need to be built, and all of those things. And part of that is going to be this facility master plan that gets developed. So I show up here in July, and one of the first things I did was kind of slow the facility master plan process down because I wanted to get that process in behind the strategic plan, just structurally for the university. So once the strategic planning process is finished around May, we'll move pretty quickly to have a facility master plan architect engaged, and we'll be kind of moving that direction. Maybe more information than you wanted to know. But the facility master plan and visions are important for us. There's just a couple of things I wanted to show you that was kind of look back over time you might find interesting. Maybe some of y'all saw this if you attended any of the open sessions we had on the fire access, which is another issue that's been in the Trinitonian and kind of hotly debated. This is some of the presentation slides from that. Trust you out of your way over here. Might be fun to go look back and look, and there's a reason for this kind of retrospective. I'll tell you when I get to the end what the reason is. This is a view of the site master plan in 1962. So I said it's not really accurate to say we never had a master plan. This kind of served as it. The buildings here in the darker kind of pinkish brown color are existing buildings at that time in 1962, and the bluish gray are proposed buildings. Get your bearings here. This is old, what was called Old Northrop, where Northrop Hall is now sitting here. The chapel, this was a proposed chapel. It's in that site now, but it's not in that shape. So they changed the shape as they moved on. There's Murchison Tower proposed. It wasn't built yet. This was Mars McLean here, right? Right. Which is currently still existing. This was the Coat Center that we're in, and this was old Coats here, I think. This was now, it was a one-story building that was torn down, which the bookstore wing of this building was rebuilt in a two-story building. This is Fine Arts over here. This was the auditorium kind of section, but never really got built that way. It looks different than that now. And this is part of the science complex. And then all up in here, this was all proposed. This is Chapman proposed. The library's not here. It's Storch. It was in this building here. This is the academic library at the time. And then up along Hildebrand, there were 3 proposed building sites, which never occurred. But what you have, the thing I want to show you is that at this time, Sapien Drive and coming up by Northrop, there was a road that came in here, and then this was a parking lot. And then the road came through this direction and out here. And so the main vehicular traffic moved right through the mall area, which now, with the library sitting here, Magic Stones are here in this grass area of the mall area. So we had a road running right through there, a parking lot. This is a couple of years later. This has the proposed buildings out, and now you're looking at all actual buildings. And again, Old Northrop, we took the proposed buildings out. So you have this road that comes up, stops here now, the road that came up and then this way and around and out of the campus on the side. This is fast forwarding to 2002, a few years later, and I guess we still had, in 2002, we still had Old Northrop. This is the Old Northrop, not the new one. Miller Fountain now you see is up here. That's now behind Northrop. It's over here now, but it used to be over here when I worked at Trinity back in the day. It was there. This is a little parking lot right in here. You see now the 2-story building for Coats and this, and the road coming in here. Now the road, the parking lot's gone that was in here before, and this is now the beginning of the mall area. Magic Stones are in at this point, but the road came around and wrapped out in this area. This road's all gone now. It's been converted to grass at this time. And then the road, of course, going up around this way is gone, and the buildings have been fleshed out up in here. The rest of the campus looks very much like it does now. And this is an aerial view in 1960 of this area. So this is, we're looking at what, Mars McLean here? Yes. And this is Moody Engineering Science, you called Baby Moody? Baby Moody. This is Baby Moody right here. What was, those of you who remember Moody Engineering Science, here it was. And this is the physical plant building that was here that was removed as part of the CSI project. So I'm sitting in here. But this is, here's the parking lot we were talking about. The center of campus was this giant parking lot that was there in 1960. So the question of the bollards, what does this have to do with the bollards? Well, in 1960, someone came along later than that. In 1970 or 1972, Dr. Laurie or somebody in the institution came along with an idea that wouldn't it be nice to have a place to have grass in the middle of campus rather than parking. And so the campus began morphing from parking lots in the central mall area to what we have now, which is this wonderful grass area, the Magic Stones. The trees were all, I think nearly all those trees were imported, right, from Mrs. Northrop's ranch. Her ranch hands dug up a lot of those oak trees, brought them in and put them into that area. And so what we get to enjoy now is kind of the fruits of a vision that was cast many, many years ago. What the facility master planning group, what I guess I want you to get is what the facility master planning group is thinking about is trying to bring that kind of concept down to lower campus. That is that this happened in incremental steps and baby steps, and the bollards is kind of a step in that direction. Philosophically, we're wanting to bring more shade to South Campus, lower campus. We want to bring a more pedestrian-friendly area. We want to try to push vehicular traffic to the outside of that area of campus. And again, this probably wasn't a popular idea in its day. In the decision on the bollards is not a popular idea. The question is, does that make it a bad idea? Time will tell. You know, when this decision was made, I suspect they didn't know then either. I'm persuaded that it is a good idea. People disagree with that. But that's kind of the general thinking there. Now, there's a safety issue that was raised, and of course that's there as well. But this is the driving idea, I think, at least what's persuading me. Questions?
Leave it open for the Senate to begin.
Yes.
So I kind of have a few questions.
Sure.
So my first question, or first kind of statement, followed by question. So when the Monte Vista Historical Society came to us last year with some grievances, one of their main complaints was the increased traffic in the neighborhoods due to Trinity University. I know when Trinity University was first designed, it was kind of the architect's idea that traffic would trickle in through the neighborhoods, and there wouldn't be just a main grand, this is Trinity University entrance like there are in most universities. So I feel like that is a legitimate concern. I would say that because of that and because of the construction on Hildebrand, Mulberry is a nightmare. And it's pretty inconvenient for students who are trying to get their car for whatever reason from like Thomas and Prassel down to the Mabee area to have to go out onto Mulberry and then come back around. So would you entertain the idea for at least a temporary removal of bollards until the construction on Hildebrand ends, so it's more convenient for students? Because I feel like that's a compromise we can make immediately and would solve a lot of students' complaints. But since it is temporary, it still falls in line with your vision.
Hildebrand, you mean Hildebrand kind of work?
Yeah.
Well, it's pushing traffic off on Mulberry. I live up Mulberry, so I drive up and down that every day, and I'm up at that road constantly, and it is backed up some. You know, I wouldn't say it's crushing. If you go to the other side of 281, it's terrible. I mean, it's nasty on the other side of 281.
I mean, it depends what time of day.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're driving from X-Lot by north-south over to Mabee Hall?
Yes.
So why wouldn't you come down Ledge Lane and enter campus there on King's Court rather than going down to Mulberry?
It's not just, okay, well, think about it going the other way then, from Mabee to up by Thomas and Prassel, because then you do have to exit onto Mulberry because you can't
go Mulberry to get up there that direction.
So, I mean, that's definitely something the student body, I think, would appreciate. I guess I'll leave that to y'all to discuss and then come back to us. The second thing is that I feel like it's a compelling argument that I love the way Upper Campus is structured. I love having that big grassy area. I think it's really, pretty, and I appreciate that. Because we're kind of like this green spot in like, San Antonio, and it's nice. It's like a park. But like, I think if if it had been presented in that way to the student body, is that you're trying to bring that down to lower campus, then I think it would have been better received. I think that's something that wasn't communicated to us.
Well, yeah, I'll take responsibility for that. I mean, I was new here, and and honestly, when we started this conversation with Sean, Sean started with me, maybe back in September. I was pretty wet behind the ears of getting to Trinity, so I'm not sure I'd even been to the first facility master planning committee meeting at that time. So it's just ignorance on my part, and so the communication was kind of weak in that regard. But that's part of the reason why I'm here to say that that's part of what I find compelling about this idea. It's not a terribly convenient thing, and when I'm trying to get up that direction, I'm kind of the same way. But then I remind myself that, you know, we have a, you know, a good goal there. So, yeah, that's a good point.
So like, kind of building off of that, what would you think about having some sort of student representative sit in on the master planning committees, just so we can increase communication between the student body and the master planning committee in the future?
I can take that under advisement. I have to think about that some. You know, part of the thing with the facility master plan committee, if you saw the letter to the editor from Catherine and from Dr. O'Rourke, I guess that was in the latest Trinitonian. There, you know, there's five faculty members on the facility master planning committee. It's an advisory committee, and so you kind of get the feel from a little bit of a feel of frustration, maybe a whole lot of a feel of frustration from Catherine's letter to the editor that I think she wants it to be more than it is, but Trinity's, but that's not how we're structured. That is an advisory committee, and it might help communications with the students, maybe alternatively, because I have to think about it. Alternatively, maybe having time where we can talk about what we're thinking with the student body, whether it's this group or someone else, where you can ask questions, and I'm all for that. I'm hesitant, and the reason I'm hesitant is not because I don't think you have good ideas. I think you do, but because again, it's an advisory thing, and you feel this kind of tension there with the faculty members that want to slow this down. The fire lane, in particular, I'm thinking of. But the issue with the fire lane is slowing it down a year. Right off the bat, we know, or at least we estimate, cost at least $200,000 more. So we're just burning through cash to slow it down. I think there's construction fatigue on campus. Everyone really wants the campus to settle down. We really feel like the upper campus being under construction hasn't helped recruitment of students. I mean, it's not a good first impression of campus when we've had the thing dug up where it looks like World War I took place or something up there. You know, we've done the best we can with that, but I think we're all kind of getting to a point where we'd like to see that wind down for a little while. And so there's a tension that I have to live with how much do I invite people into that process to get feedback from them, and then say, but you know what, I still have to make decisions, we have to move on, and here's why. And then they're like, well, then they don't like the here's why, and then you get kind of wrapped around the axle on those things. So that's my concern, I guess, on that. I have to think about it some.
I can offer a little bit of input just on that. So you talk about the idea of like getting the input. I would just say, I mean, like, if student was there, you may not have like this whole process we're going through like today, where you're essentially having to address this concern and bring it up. I mean, second thing is ASR doesn't always agree with the faculty. I can think of numerous times this year, myself personally, I've engaged with many faculty personnel, a lot of stuff like that. I mean, when it comes to construction on campus, students want it done as fast as possible. So if in an advisory context, like, what I would say is it may be better because then at least said student could then say, like, tell ASR what's going on, so then we don't like have to scramble around to figure what's going out, and then you'd have to come here. And
sure.
That might actually like streamline that process.
Okay. Fair enough.
Why would you want the green space specifically there?
Well, I'm not necessarily wanting the green space there. I think that's going to remain a road. The idea there is that we're pushing the vehicular traffic out of the core campus in baby steps. So I don't see grass there. Because we have to move. One, we have to have fire lane access behind that building, so it's impossible to make that grass. It's going to have a hard surface there always. We have to get in and out of the football stadium. We have to have fire trucks be able to get to the back of the Bell Center. And so I don't see that going away. But what I do see is maybe a change in the aesthetics of the place. We have quite a bit of foot traffic going up down there, particularly athletes, but other students as well. And so maybe we can improve the aesthetics of it where it's a little bit more pleasant walk, but it's going to be a hard surface. Green space in other places in the campus might be a possibility. I'm not sure where that would be. That all has to get fleshed out still, but that's really the idea of that road.
Somewhat of, I don't know if you thought about this, but the parking lot near the swimming pool. I think that'd be a great place for green space, and I think if there were no bollards, that would encourage parking in Prassel Garage. Because I know it's a pain to park in Prassel Garage. You know, I live in Prassel. And so
Pain to park in Prassel, it's great alliteration.
because then you have to drive all the way around to get, you know, to where you need to go. And so, so first, you know, you're looking for parking. So you start in T1 and you look there, and maybe there's none, depending on the time of day. And then so you go look at T3, and maybe there's none, depending on the time of day. Well, then you're like, okay, now do I just go to Prassel or do I go to the parking lot near the swimming pool? And I personally don't like parking in Prassel Garage because I don't like the garage at night necessarily, but also because it is a kind of a pain, because then it's closer to maybe, but it's farther away from getting to classes or to babysitting, whatever, on the other side. And so I think opening up the bollards would encourage parking in Prassel Garage. And I think that spot where it's hard to park over there in the swimming pool parking lot anyways, because it's so packed and it's hard to get out and everything. So I think that'd be a great spot for green space, and I think opening up the bollards and everything, it would be less of a pain to know if you can't find parking in the Thomas parking lots. It's just easy to get there.
I think since we're in a transitional period right now, and they're trying to push traffic outside the university, which I understand it's a positive thing, because you want it to be a pedestrian-friendly campus, because, you know, kids didn't come here to get run over by cars. But the thing is now, especially since Trinity serves as a main center for a lot of other ceremonies, naturalization ceremonies at Laurie, you have so many other people who aren't part of the campus parking on campus, and with ballers, at least at this time, it's becoming even more stressful to navigate as a student. Like, I live off campus, so coming onto campus, it's even more stressful because I'll also read the email and say, I can't park there, so I have to go to the other side of campus and come through. And so it's just having to plan that extra 5 to 10 minutes in my day is not something I want to do. And it's the bollards, I mean, to me, I don't go through Lower campus that often, but when I am dropping something off or when I am going by the Bell Center, that is an extra mode for me. I have to go all the way back around. And when I already have to like look for parking on Lower campus because there's not available on Upper campus because of outside events, it's just a very frustrating situation as a student overall. And so I agree with maybe if we could just temporarily take them down while the construction's going on, because it is a transitional phase. And I do understand that eventually be a green space wanted there, but at this time, since it's not feasible, there's so many other things going on, it's just not helpful for us to get to class every day.
I know you're saying that the whole idea of the bollards is to be more pedestrian friendly, especially down in that area. But in that area where the bollards are, is there any data that says that there's been accidents or that students have been hit or anything at all that would even make it more pedestrian friendly or in a pain?
Well, the area in there is not, I mean, it's a judgment call. I don't know if we had someone ran over, but that, I mean, I was sitting, you know, working with Southwestern University in Georgetown. I'm sitting and trying to make an argument with the city council, and they asked the exact same question. Well, how many people have been ran over because we don't have a stoplight here? You know, it was years and years went by, we tried to get a stoplight. Well, we finally had 2 faculty members and a student ran over 1 year. That's a pretty bad way of, you know, I don't know if that's a good place to start the conversation. I mean, people come around, people were coming in. We could slow the traffic down with other means. I mean, we could put speed breakers in there. We have, we believe, a pretty significant amount of traffic that's off-campus traffic that was cutting through to get, I mean, if you're going 281 north, particularly if Hildebrand's jammed up, it's, you know, people would cut through campus, come out on the 281, hit the turn around, and up they go north. So, anyway, I don't know that we've ever had anyone ran over there. I've been almost ran over there, but not quite. So I'm not a statistic.
The thing about the bollards too, it's not, as far as safety, it's not just the area between the bollards being more safe. It's also the area between the Pittman tennis courts and the football field. That street there, basically a big wide sidewalk has been forever. And now there's much less, there is vehicular traffic on there occasionally, but the traffic there has considerably dropped. And so it's much safer to walk on
And
that.
there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on that road. And then as Sean pointed out, up by the chapel area as well, I mean, we have some areas that we need to pay attention to and try to make them as safe as we can. I'll come back to you if there's other questions. We're just trying to get around it. Sean?
Yeah, just a quick question in terms of kind of the way the process of how this happened. Now, you mentioned the master plan and how the bollards are there to kind of support the master plan. But, I mean, as you mentioned, the master plan hasn't been voted on by the Board of Trustees yet. And it seems to me that like the way the bollards went up is, there was construction in that area initially, and the bollards came up to block that area off.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the construction was ended, the only notice the student body got was essentially the Trinitonian being like, bollards are going to stay up. So my point is like this is essentially lower campuses mainly a student area, and the bollards are kind of at like the heart of essentially student life on campus. From the freshman quad to the sophomore college across the way. So I was just curious in terms of like communicating something like this to the students, how you would go about like improving the communication going forward.
Yeah, well, I think that's an accurate portrayal of how this happened. I think it was probably the construction of the physical plant, central plant related to the CSI project that initially is that right? Mm-hmm. We had to block that off because of the staging for that project on the back side of the Bell Center. We consolidated the central plant area, which I guess is this building here that went down, and then also some space that's on the back side of the Wind Dormitory, and we abandoned that space and consolidated the central plant there. And it was as part of that we had to put the bollards up initially to block traffic off for staging for that. So that was kind of running along there, and then simultaneously we were developing the principal document for the facility master plan, and I think that really, those kind of end up running in kind of parallel, and then at some point, I don't know the history, that predates me of exactly when the decision was made to leave the bollards there after the project was over, but they weren't put in there, you're right, initially as part of the concept of pedestrian-friendly campus. They were put in for construction, I think, and maybe slash pedestrian-friendly, because they're awfully permanent, looking for it not to been, that wasn't just construction, but I don't know the exact history of that. But as far as communication goes, again, I'm the one, as I said, I accept responsibility for the failure of communication on that, where we didn't get out and talk about it, more plainly than we did early on in the fall semester. But that is what it is, and I think for issues like this, we're trying to share as much information as we think is appropriate if people show up. The fire lane issue was one where we had to open town hall meetings and advertise those, invited people to come and ask questions and share information. So we're trying to do more of that. And so I'm committed to getting better at that.
I have a question. Kind of moving forward, it seems like parking is going to become a point of concern, just because I'm sure more people drive nowadays than they did when the university was first laid out. So I've heard vague talk about a parking garage on upper campus eventually, and I was kind of wondering what plans are in the works for that, or what thoughts you guys have?
I don't know that there's any conversation about that. I mean, there's probably been people talking about 1,000 ideas about things that could be done. We've talked from time to time about a parking garage on South Campus. I'm not aware of, we've had an idea that maybe we could put a small parking garage up on North Campus if we had to have it for parking reasons. I've heard that mentioned, but there's nothing serious in the plans for that. There's going to be a huge change in available parking on campus once CSI is finished and the parking lot north of Laurie Auditorium opens back up.
And also when Alamo Stadium construction gets done too.
Yeah, and we're working with Alamo Stadium to try to not make that more disruptive than it already is. But we have two very large construction projects going on at the same time. That probably doesn't make your life any happier, but it kind of is what it is. It's progress, right? So, what else to say about that? But no parking garage plans on upper campus at this time.
But it's also difficult, it would be extremely difficult to justify a parking garage, given the fact that we basically have free parking for the next 20 years
Yeah.
at Alamo Stadium.
Yeah. Parking garages are outrageously expensive to build. I mean, if you can't charge for them, you know, the use of them like in a city garage downtown or something, they're very expensive. And so we could use one strategically. One could be used on campus. It'd probably be in the South Campus area, and the purpose of that would be to try to consolidate some of the parking off of there and create green space. So that's a possibility, but again, it's very expensive, and so the odds of that will probably all be long gone before something like that came about. But things like that will be what the facility master plan, the vision of that will be. How can we restructure the southern campus area so that it really is, I mean, it's really an awesome thing. I love Trinity, by the way. I love seeing the students out taking advantage of the athletic facilities at night, which is a much more active student body than at Southwestern. And I like that. I like to see the facilities used. And so obviously there's a good number of students that appreciate the outdoor facilities we have. And we want to continue to enhance those. I think they're a real asset for us as an institution, as a community. We want to make them as good as we can make them.
So I have a question about parking actually up at campus. I had a couple students reach out to me concerning off-campus visitors, essentially I think entering that, I think it's a Stadium Drive entrance to the library. In terms of, I think, in peak morning hours, like buses coming in, I think there's like a logistical kind of like shutdown. And I know there's an entrance being, I think, developed at the Hildebrand in the future.
There's a conversation about that in the long-term conversation about the possibility of that, but it's depending on fundraising and a lot of other things. So there's been quite a lot of planning work done on that as a possibility, but it's a ways out there if it happens at all.
I've only experienced this once, but I know I've had numerous students bring this up to me. It is during, I think it's like the 9:30 period. I've noticed, especially, there's like, I mean, a ton of buses, I think, coming into that Lori main entrance.
So
and I've seen like
regularly?
huge charter buses. Like, you'll see a ton of school buses lined up, and then there's like a huge charter bus going through. And essentially, if you're going 9:30 to the library, you have to go in through like, what is it, the historic house entrance along there. Like, you have to go that way. You can't go into the main way.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told. So I know logistically that's been.
Yeah, I don't know how often the buses are in on that. There are plays and things and shows at Laurie Auditorium that have school children at them. I didn't think they were that often, but they're.
I just noticed during those kind of peak student hours. I think that was the only reason it was noticed. It was like 9:30 class, and that was.
So those are the children's concerts, and I think at least the staff and faculty, I assume the students also get a notice from TUPD.
Well, yeah, it's more like that traffic then gets diverted through that Monte Vista area, which then
comes up in the curve right there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So this is the old. There used to be a road through here, so the buses used to come around. I don't know if they went this way or this way, but they used to come around the building. Still would jam that place up in there, but they would come around, and now they're having to go up in there and turn around, I suppose, which is probably very difficult to get the buses through. And if we're able to do the entrance at some point in the future, it will specifically address that among a number of other issues, because that is a difficult, logistically difficult area, jams up in there for sure. Okay.
Comments, questions?
Yeah, going back to like the issue of the bollards, I remember like one of the original like justifications was that that space could be used for like athletic buses during weekends when there were games going on. But like the past few weekends, I've noticed that buses are starting to park outside of the bollards, right in that intersection as you're trying to go on Kings Court from Lower Campus, and the buses are just so large that they're blocking that entire intersection. So I was just wondering how you plan on addressing that issue and actually making it so that that athletic buses could actually be stored in that space.
There's one there right now. If you go down
in the space? Yeah,
right
I'm not familiar with that whole issue, to be honest with you. I don't know why we couldn't do that. It's just, we just need to do it, right? There's nothing that would stop us from doing that. I think it's just planning and communicating with the athletic department to do that. So can you follow up on that and see if we can do that?
Well, what I was going to say earlier was just, in my opinion, I just feel like it'd be easier, especially now with everything that's going on campus. If the bollards weren't there, we put like stop signs, I don't know exactly how, but if you had stop signs on the corners in those areas, I think it's still pedestrian friendly and it allows people to go through.
Yeah.
Has that been done around or thought about at all?
Yeah, what we did, we looked at, on the safety side of this, we looked at a number of things. I mean, it was pretty much a racetrack in there. I mean, there was some pretty fast-moving vehicular traffic, and I think a lot of non-Trinity vehicular traffic coming down that road. You know, stop signs work if people stop. You know, they'll slow it down, but I think a lot of times people are rolling through that. So, you know, there's a concern there, and I don't know if it's so much that the safety issue was so much there as it really is back over in the bearings here. Go back over here by the in this area.
We don't show the entire campus there.
Yeah, this is the tennis court, so we're down in here. But back over in this area where the traffic's coming in and the students are walking from Prassel and coming up that road. Into the turn as they start going south as you come by the football field and turn there. And again, there's multiple ways of addressing safety issues. We could have put speed bumps in there. We could have done stop signs. We could have plowed down all the shrubbery that's in that corner, which makes it almost a blind turn when you're going into it. So people come flying around that thing, stop sign or no. And the concern has been for years that we're going to, it's just a matter of time when we have a pedestrian sitting on, coming across that road or up that road around those bushes, and somebody comes flying around that corner and hits them. Again, that could have been dealt with by taking all the shrubbery down, but that was yeah, we did look at all of that.
So just to make sure I understand, what Evan asked earlier was that even during the construction, you wouldn't consider taking the bollards down?
Well, I'll think about it, but the problem with that is that we end up, you know, I think this is the right thing to do, and Dennis thinks it's the right thing to do, Dr. Oliver, and so the problem with that is if it's the right, if we believe it's the right thing to do for long-term vision for the university, backing off of that just makes this drag this thing out longer. I think we get adjusted to it. I live up Mulberry and I drive up and down there at least twice a day, and I don't experience that problem on Mulberry. I understand it's inconvenient. I understand it's not a popular decision. I get that, but I'm not persuaded that we should move the decision back. But I'll think about it some more. But right now I don't want to just keep having meetings and talking about something. So.
I would say that I think that temporary solution would go a long way with garnering some goodwill with the student body. And I think that's something you should think of as well. Just easy.
Other questions, comments?
I have something on a different note. I think I remember. Emergency blue light phones are important to me. I think we are lacking in numbers on campus, and I think the locations so far, I think because of, we're constantly building and everything's changing, that the locations are not the best places, and they cause the views from different areas to be blocked. I am currently working on a resolution for ASR. I'm doing some more research to figure out statistics and such, but I think we are definitely in need of some more. And as a female who walks back from the library late at night and in parking lots and from Murchison, everything, I think there's definitely a need because our campus is not well lit, and TUPD can't be everywhere, unfortunately. And so I think it needs to be there for the times when TUPD can't.
Okay. Well, and Sean had mentioned this to me in our last meeting I had with him. We certainly want everyone not only to be safe, but to feel safe on campus. That's important to us. We're an urban campus, and we have to work hard at, we have a fantastic police department. Chief Chop has done a great job training his staff. I hope y'all feel that. Hopefully they're trying to strike a good balance between being kind of the warm, fuzzy public relations side towards students. You may or may not feel that way sometimes, but that's what we're trying to strive to help you live life here in a safe way. And versus being in the middle of the city that at times is dangerous, and so I get that. You know, the blue phones are, I don't know if those are on the rise or on the decline in use. We don't have much use of those on campus. There's very few calls made on those, and with the rise of cell phone technology, I don't know how much they get used, but I certainly want to look at that if it's something that's important to the student body, if it would help in that regard.
I've also had students talk to me about that, and I feel like if there's a legitimate problem and you're being chased, you don't really have time to pull out your phone and dial. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's a problem, and you could also apply the same logic. Like, we haven't had any pedestrians hit,
right? Yeah,
so we put the bollards up, but we haven't had any majors.
Really educated. I was thinking the same things. I said that. Good catch.
So I feel like it's a legitimate.
So you're getting your money's worth here. Okay, I'll see the point on that.
Also, especially because I feel like lately there are more non-Trinity people coming on campus, and like the library can welcome anyone from anyone in the public. So I know there've been incidents inside the library. So no, like I feel really uncomfortable. I live off campus, so I park in the library. I know I personally feel really uncomfortable, like at night walking from the library to my car. I was like, make sure someone walks with me, or try my best to.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know. I always like, what if something happens?
Yeah.
So I know like the library parking lot especially, I feel like is a little, and especially because it's on the outskirts of campus, it's a little intimidating, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, not everyone has their phone all the time. You know, it's dead. You know, if you're at the library really late, you know, you probably don't have time to charge it. You know, I currently don't have my phone. I left it in the library. You know, it's for times when you don't have your cell phone and TUPD can't be there. You need a backup. You need something. Because you never know what can happen, you know? And I think that the emergency blue light phones, anyone can understand how to use them. So it's not, if someone was, you know, a non-Trinity student was running along campus and they saw something, they could figure it out. So it's not just something that Trinity students know how to use. And I like the fact that you can call TUPD immediately, they know where you are, there's no delay, like with a cell phone where you have to look it up, and then you have to explain where you are, and you know, there's just so much delay, whereas with the emergency blue light phones, it's you press it, you talk, they know where you are, they can be there. And if you had time at some point, I would like to show you some locations that I think they are necessary, because there's not many on lower campus, especially near the sports fields and everything. And like you said, there's many students at night who are using the sports fields. And you know, my roommate, she goes running at night and she doesn't always take her phone, and it makes me crazy. But you know, she's running around there, and you know, I feel like it would be a better idea to be proactive and have emergency blue light phones around, and more of them, than to wait around for something to happen.
Are you, I guess, in your cohorts, are they the ones who communicate with TUPD as well, to some extent?
I'm not sure I understood what you said.
Master planning over like
on
TUPD?
Communicate with TUPD on the blue phones, for instance?
Well, just, things of safety issues on campus?
Well, so Chief Chapa and I guess John and I would really kind of work together on that. You know, so part of this is where and I don't even know what the technological capabilities of the blue phones are in 2013. But, you know, we have to get electricity to it, we have to get some type of signal to it, and then maintain those. So, you know, they may have cell phone technology on those. I suspect they probably do now, so you don't have to get a telephone line to them. But depending on the location, even electricity becomes not an impossibility, but a significant expense, not putting the price on student safety, but just acknowledging the reality of maybe there's 8 locations, was like, these would be great locations for a phone, and there's some low-hanging fruit in the sense that we can do this one, this one, this one cheaper than we can do one over here. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but and Louis, you were asking a
Yeah, I
question.
was just asking, well, it's more of a positive thing, because I don't want you to think that you're coming here and just ripping, because y'all have done a lot, and I do see that.
Throw some tomatoes.
Sorry, no.
Supervise
Yeah.
PPE.
Oh, yeah, that was, but I think a really great thing that I've been seeing lately, I've seen it the past 2 weeks, and I didn't know if this was just something new, and I really would like to see it, is I have seen TUPD, I park it in Northrop when I go to the library at night, because I'm not going to take those stairs, and they've been officers there, which is really nice, because it's not well lit. And they've also had officers in golf carts at the library when it closed at 11:30 or 12 midnight. And I really like that feature. And so that was, I don't know who decided to encourage that or supervise that. That was really positive. And I'd like to see that because it's really nice, even if we don't take them up on the offer, it's nice to have someone saying, can we escort you to your car?
Yeah.
It's nice having that person there. And I know that that's the main purpose of the blue lights. It's just, we want to be better supervised, especially as like young women walking on campus.
I
So.
I agree. Yep, I have 2 daughters that are roughly y'all's age.
Yeah.
I agree.
There are smaller, cheaper options for parking lots that go on lights that we could look at. I've gone to their website several times, and there's other options that don't take up as much space and things to consider, but they are more up-to-date versions than what we have. Not saying that we need those. I think just being able to call is awesome. I know that something that you are considering doing is a giant speaker or something, or isn't that
Giant voice.
giant voice?
I don't know what that is.
That's for crisis.
Oh,
The
the amplifier. and,
the big speaker.
Speaker array.
Right.
Yeah, we approved the last piece of that in this last budget process, and so the long term, I think that's part of the just kind of the emergency, the trend alert system.
Mass notification.
Mass notification system, and trend alert being a piece of that. But so there's an array on Upper Campus, and there is already, or there will be completed an array on Southern Campus. I don't remember if it's there yet, or it seems to me like there's a piece still to come this summer to finish that, but I don't know if I have that right or not. It seems like in the budget process we approved a piece of that Southern Campus array in the last budget process, so it'll get installed this summer. So that'll allow us, I think, to speak over those amplification systems, I guess loudly enough to hear it anywhere on campus. It may be inside buildings too. I've not heard those things go off, but they must be quite loud if you can hear it inside the buildings. So that's kind of the short-term solution on the mass notification. And then I think the longer-term solution for us is we're renovating buildings. The fire systems that we're putting in the buildings, like it, that'll go into WIN, maybe it's already in Miller and Calvert. I don't know. Is that where they online?
Storage, CSI.
Storage and CSI. Those systems actually have voice capabilities in the fire system. So if there's a mass notification, active shooter on campus, or other type of crisis, we'll be able to speak into the buildings themselves in addition to the amplification if we need that. So we're moving that along, but that's a pretty major retrofit into buildings, and so we're kind of picking those off as we work through the buildings over the next 5 to 10 years.
And I love that idea. But for the locations that aren't necessarily in your buildings, like the Frisbee Golf Course and some of the fields, the emergency blue light phones have speakers on them to allow communication.
Through those.
Yes, also.
Yeah, getting electricity into that area will be probably difficult for us, but I mean that's an area that's not covered by phones currently for sure.
I had a question on the fire lane. So there's a brief article in the Tony about it, and kind of illustration of what it would be. Basically, just like this giant 20-foot
superhighway.
Yeah,
it was
superhighway in the middle of campus. Is that kind of what the plan is going to be, or is it still in the works, or like what kind of the status on that? I suppose.
I was thinking I had I would show you a copy of that, but I don't have that here. I'd have to log out and back on to get my network to pick that up, I guess, wouldn't I? I was just to show you an aerial view of that. Maybe I can do that. I don't know if that's how He's dead.
No, just hit, yeah, just,
Okay, so now what? Foreclosed,
Foreclosed.
foreclosed, foreclosed off, here we go.
Yes.
Closing them all down.
You got it in your files?
Yeah. I think so. This must be old, John. I thought I had the new one. Yes, I do. Let's see one more time.
You don't have the aerial in there?
I thought I did, but that looks like it's old presentation information. Oh, you know what? I'm in the wrong. I think I put it someplace else. Just a second. Just a second. Where did I put that? I don't know where I put it. Okay, well, never mind. I don't want to sit here and watch me look for this thing. Too many things on the computer. So I thought it was that one, but it's not. So, oh well, I was going to show you the aerial view of that. It's actually pretty nice looking, but it's not.
You've got at least a site plan there.
Yeah, but it's not what I was looking for. So this is as John said, this is the site plan. I was going to show you the aerial view, the artist rendering of that, but it's pretty nice. So that's the aerial view of what we're looking at. Here's Northrop, the parking lot that comes up to here. There's already fire lane. Some of this is already in here. This is all fire lane in between Coates and Northrop. Now it's a product called Grass Creek that's underlayment beneath. This is what it looks like. Y'all may have seen this pop up over by the bike rack just outside of this building, whichever way that is over here. You can see some of that worn through. So we have some. This is a different campus. This is University of Harvard. But we have pretty extensive use of Grass Creek, which was an accepted fire code fire lane material. So that Grass Creek's kind of center tile block. It's put down in there, and there's 3 inches of sod put on the top of it. So you're walking on grass, but trucks can drive on it. It's strong enough for them to drive on it. The new fire marshal, who started, I guess, work in the last year, has changed his interpretation of the code, and so he's just allowed the use of Fire Creek. And that happened as recently as phase 2 of CSI was approved with the idea that we're going to go to use Grass Creek. And that was we got the certificate of occupancy on that in August of 2012 or July 2012. July 2012, right?
A little before then, but anyway, yeah.
Right, in summer of 12, so just last year. And from there to now, our current conversations with them in December of 12, January of 13, they said you can't do that anymore. And so everyone in the city, I think, is running into that same problem. So I guess it was a little earlier than that, because in December, after this, y'all left for the break, we asked for a variance. And so variance is saying, hey, let us cut us some slack here. We want to use this Grass Creek. And so they said no, and John and his staff went back and said why, and they said, well, because if you have which seems kind of like oxymoronish, but if you have a torrential noetic kind of flood that's going on simultaneous with a building fire, we can't get our fire trucks in, which I'm kind of scratching my head going, well, that just seems kind of strange that it seems like the rain would put the fire out, but I guess it doesn't always work that way, right? So anyway, they said, well, if you have a big rain, 3 or 4 inches, and you're trying to get in here, you can't get the trucks in on Grass Creek. It won't work. We said, yeah, well, we're not convinced. Will you test it? Will you let us, because we're really wanting to use Grass Creek. So they agreed to do that. And so this area you see all torn up was our test. So they made us put about 4 inches of water on top of that turf over a 3-hour period through our sprinkler systems. And then they drove their fully loaded fire trucks up on it and tried to get up to Northrop Hall. And as I told everyone I've talked to, it was a test that we were designed to fail at, and we failed spectacularly. I mean, they were just wallowing in mud. It was just a disaster. I wasn't sure they were going to get out of here without having a tow truck. And so he made his point, and so they said, of course, no, you're not going to use grasscrete. You have to use a hard surface of some type, or you can do what Incarnate Word has done. And this is an acceptable use of grasscrete, and that is, you just don't put dirt on top of it. You sow grass seed on top of it, and so when you're walking on it, you're actually walking on the concrete itself. The problem with that is, as soon as the sun comes out, it looks like this, and so this is what our mall area would look like if we did that. And so we didn't want to go that direction. So our options then were a hard surface of some kind. And I have to say, you know, I'm not excited about, the initial idea I wasn't excited about, but when I saw what happened with the fire trucks there, I don't know what the odds are of having a rain like that and having an emergency in a building, but I wouldn't feel very good about it if it happened. And I said, okay, I sit there and watch the test, and even if they said, yeah, you can do it anyway, Logan, if you think it's a good idea, I wouldn't feel very good about that if we actually had that occur. So I think a hard surface is it's the right thing. It's taken me a while to get there, but he convinced me. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm kind of from Missouri, so I saw, I believe, and so now we need to move on. So the idea now is, where this is grasscrete in this area now, we're going to make lemonade out of lemons, and so this is our sidewalk, which I think the letter the editor referred to as kind of a super highway. But rather than think of it that way, I look at it as an opportunity to really kind of rethink all of Upper Campus in a positive way. Can I talk about this for a few minutes, or is that? I may not even have a picture of the Upper Campus where we can see it in the current configuration. Is that it?
Yeah, that's right.
So this is the current configuration. This was the grasscrete area that we were thinking about at the time, where this was what it would have looked like without the hard surface. But you see the current sidewalk configuration. It kind of goes everywhere. And our planning strategy back then was, well, if students were making a cow path from here to here, I'm going to call it a cow path because I'm a country boy. If we have a cow trail running through here, then we're just, let's just put concrete there because we want green grass, and we can't have green grass with hundreds of people walking back and forth. It just kills the grass. And so we put concrete there. And then so we'd have somebody walking from here to here, and we put concrete there. And it wasn't completely random like that, but it kind of has that feel to it. It has a little bit of a randomness feel to it, because some of it was a little bit, well, it's not random, it was a pragmatic thing. And so it's the shortest point distance from one point to the next. Well, so we had the opportunity to kind of rethink that. And so this larger pathway has the advantage of improving, I think, one, reducing the number of small tributary kind of sidewalks running all through here. But also, this area is hard to see on here because the trees are here. But I really like that it's smooth on this one side, and it's got to get this jagged edge over here, which just kind of picks up this theme of the mid-century modernist feel to campus. It's kind of got that feel, asymmetrical feel to it. The circle in here, the oval and the circle around the magic stones, which will be grass, not that color will be green, but that circle in this area, and this is the idea of what the new entrance would look like if we had the new entrance from Hildebrand. So this is drawn with the new entrance concept. Mm-hmm. It works either way. But with the new entrance, the same paver stone here is this big plaza, and it connects these two areas, and it widens this out. And so this is all that kind of same stone, and it reflects. So it welcomes people into campus is the idea. So it's bringing them in here, and it's looking right in, accidentally right at the tower. That was the whole entrance down the campus, and coming in is looking into this area and kind of come up and into the campus in this way. So the idea is that we would have it is going to be a broader area. I don't like to think of it as a road, but as this is kind of what maybe this oval might look like, something of that brownish tone, and this is actually probably close to the tone of the sidewalk. The concrete won't be in the grays or the white, the more bluish white gray tint, but more in the tannish colors, tones, very light. I don't know if I have a picture of that, but you may see some of that, like if you ever get down on the southern reach of the Mission Trail, the river trail that goes down the city of San Antonio is built. concrete down toward the missions area down there. It's a rock salt finish. It has some holes in it. It looks a little bit like stone, a little bit of a limestone look to it. Pitted a little bit on the surface, a little bit of a tannish color to it. And then it would be scored to look kind of like stone. I think it can provide a really nice look to campus in there. The other thing we'll be talking about, and again, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, but this is going to be kind of a goal, is we'll be looking at can we reduce or eliminate some of the cart traffic that's moving, the golf cart traffic that's moving, just particularly right in this area right here. We still have to do our jobs. We've got to have, I may exempt police from that because we need, the security is going to trump that. But just to stop John, with no governor in his cart going 30 miles an hour through this area, this is going to be, again, more of a pedestrian feel to it, and kind of tying that in with this area, plaza area to CSI. I think it could be a very positive thing. I like the design. I think that we had 3 groups of architects, that the architectural firm for CSI, the ones who've been working with us on the design of the entry project, and the landscape architects in the university all worked together, and they all kind of came to this design conclusion that it works. And I was more skeptical of the materials at first, but they kind of won me over. It's taken me a while, but I think it could be a very positive thing for us to do. Now, the other thing we're going to run into, we're not, I don't know that we're doing this area down here, but we're anticipating as soon as we renovate the codes, and I'm not sure when that will happen, but sooner or later that will happen. We will have to bring ladder truck access into the southern side of that building. So we're trying to anticipate. This is part of the master planning process. We're trying to anticipate what's going to happen. And so we'll want to make a standard for our materials. We'll have a consistent look through that whole part of the campus. We may look at some of these sidewalks in here and try to thin them. We've not really weeded this area at all. We just put it in here. This area is probably going to eventually have to change as well. I'm assuming we're going to have to bring trucks into that side of the building, but that may be 10 years from now. But those are issues that we'll have to address as we go down the road as we renovate buildings.
I know it's getting late, we probably have to leave, and I understand why you wouldn't want to do it, but is it possible to give, because I don't know if any students have ever gotten a sneak peek of what the north entrance might look like.
John, can you pull that up? I don't mind looking at that again.
Didn't I see it on your list?
Well, did I just not pull it up?
I think it was underneath the file that said Toddle's good ideas.
I'm all squad here, I guess.
You guys
under presentation.
I'm all there. You guys changed this more just looking at it.
Okay, well, let me log in.
9 weeks.
I'll send my kids your name.
be there, Dean.
Right?
Big dragon.
The Hilton brand entrance, John will put that up so you can kind of take a sneak preview of that. Sneak preview only in the sense that it really is an idea that's out there that has to have funding. It really has to be one of those things. It's an unfunded project. It's not going to happen without donors supporting it. And so this is the way we move these ideas forward at a university like Trinity is that, you kind of have a vision, you put it out there, and then it gets traction or it dies. And so I think it's a good idea. I find it compelling for a couple of reasons. I think what makes us unique in the marketplace is because we're anchored. It's the people in the place, and those things are kind of joined together. We're not going to be an online institution. We're not going to be University of Texas. We're not going to be Incarnate Word. This is who we are, and we're anchored in the faculty and staff that are here in this place. And so we go study abroad, you come back here. We do online learning or whatever that happens to be out there so that we have this technological edge in our education, but it's always anchored here. And so I think the entrance project is a compelling idea because it emphasizes that. It's this kind of first impression for a visitor or for a prospective student that you're arriving at place. And this is a special place. I don't know if I want to call it a special place with special people. That doesn't sound right. But we are special people. a special place with incredible people here. And I think that philosophically, the campus ought to align with who we are, and it kind of resonates with me in that sense. But it has to resonate with people. I had no money to support the thing, so it's got to resonate with somebody that matters, not with me. And that's a $64 question, whether that would be the case or not. So John likes to tell me that or I like to tell John maybe, we're at a point where the architects call this kind of the point of consolidation in the vision of a project. You cast an idea and everybody says, yes, that sounds like a great idea. And then you have a schematic and you have a budget. And then everybody sees the price tag and you go, whoa. And then at that point, this point of consolidation is kind of everybody's a little bit, now there's a little bit of noise. And the project either gets legs or it dies. And that may take a week and it may take 5 years. But until money comes along, this project probably won't be able to move forward.
I think
I was just going to show the main.
The overview with the teardrop, yeah, there.
Yeah, there's that's a pretty good view of it. So,
and then maybe the artist.
Yeah, so this is this property that's across at Gilbert that we call the triangle property, and this kind of the idea is that this would be a boulevard type improvement, and this is something the city is interested in, and we're interested in, and I think Sunshine Cottage is interested in Bart and Coons and Red Cones owns this property is interested in, and that's saying kind of cleaning this area up as well. And then the entrance kind of comes down and divides and here widens this out and really levels this area out. Right now, if you remember, that road's kind of down and very steep, sharp turning up, and then this is graded much more smoothly in here. This is actually flattened out between these two buildings. So the second floor, the library, and I think they're taking those steps out of the Lori Auditorium, but now you have to go up several steps and back down. Long before we had access issues, accessibility issues, and so this addresses some of those. But that's kind of the general idea. We have a main entrance that comes comes this way, again pushing vehicular traffic out. This is an inner kind of side, but this would be the main traffic flow around this way and then this way on campus. You see the oval tied in, and again, the materials of this all tied together as it moves through this. I think this starts here, that paving, pavers would go all through that mall area, the plaza area, and then down through the oval. Again, that's an idea. I think it's an exciting idea that deals with traffic, parking, entrance. It beautifies the campus, gives us an arrival in place. It deals with drainage, which is a substantial challenge for us. We have a lot of water, it's very steep, a lot of water coming this way and moving this direction as it moves toward the San Antonio River, and it's flooding the lower levels of Laurie Auditorium. The city continues to push as they develop up in this area. They continue to push more water on our campus. It's eroding. We're having some challenges up here with the erosion our land and also flooding down in here. So this project, if it went through, would also be designed. I don't know what the right term is, but it also be designed to capture water as it comes down and hold it and allow it to naturally soak, some of it to soak into the retain and release is what retain and release is the words I'm looking for. So it'd be kind of controlled retain and release as it comes down the slope so that it wouldn't wash the property away as much as it's been doing lately. When it rains. Do I?
Can you show the crosswalk too? The artist rendering.
At the intersection?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so this is, so that's kind of what that's the artist rendering of what they think it might look like there. And this is up the library and the Laurie Auditorium looking back to the direction of that area in there. It's a new freshman right here. Again, these are again conceptual drawings, probably a long ways off. We'll all be drawing probably before this happens, but it could happen tomorrow. It's just got to have somebody with that catches that vision and says, yeah, that's what I want. That's the gift I want to give to Trinity University. So I think it's an exciting idea. Other thoughts? Sorry, I took up a lot of y'all's time, but
It looks really nice.
Where's that opening out onto? Where's the north opening? It's right there in Hildebrand. So people will be crossing over from the median development program.
It's a triangle.
Yeah.
So right across, okay.
Yeah, it's the west end of the triangle is probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 feet back from the corner of that
Probably
triangle.
more than that, but there'd be a traffic light up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all controlled by the city, you know, we have to be spec'd out by them, a certain distance from the Hildebrand lot, and all of that stuff's controlled by them.
Be smart anyways, put a median in there, because when you go around now, it's like everyone's in
Yeah.
the 2 lanes almost merge right
And
there,
it,
so.
it stops that traffic that shoots, or wherever that road is that's behind the triangle property, it'll stop that because
Like divide,
the median's divided in there, so you can't get that kind of shooting across traffic, so it'll be safer in that sense, safer for Sunshine Cottage. It slows the traffic down and allows them to get in and out. Now they're not supposed to come out and turn east, but they do, and it makes a pretty dangerous situation. That would force them to not do that, I think, but it would give them also a light to be able to get into traffic going west a little bit easier. So there's a lot of pluses to it, but again, it's another one of those things. The city also has to think it's a good idea. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ifs in there, but again, it's an exciting idea.
Just out of curiosity, what's that supposed to cost?
How much does it cost? That's a great question. It's, you know, our estimates on that thing would be somewhere in the $20 million range, all in, counting the roads and everything. So it's like I said, it's a big idea, and it just depends on how much the city would be willing, if any, to put into that versus, you know, how much we could fundraise and things like that. But it's a kind of a big, and it can be phased in. We can do pieces of it too, so it doesn't have to all be done at one time. But it's kind of one of those big ideas out there.
Got a $20 million donation.
Yeah. So yep. So when y'all make your first $20 million, don't forget to give back. Those would be.
Class gift.
Yeah, that's right. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the process. Again, I know this hasn't been a popular decision, but we'll do better. Hopefully communicating, and maybe I can come back sometime and we can talk about some other things if you want.
Thank you.
Any other additional points to bring up?
No, we can pass it.
Weekend after Thursday, we can do, if you can keep the camera on, I won't wait for it.
No, want the lights. Where are the lights?
I
want
okay,
this,
good.
Just cut her off.
The lights darken.
Do we want to do a nice final dinner with this standing ASR before we transition the newbies in?
Well, I mean, the transition dinner is kind of like supposed to be that. I mean, not a lot of newbies show up to the transition dinner, with the exception of like Sean last year.
Yeah.
But I mean, who was actually here? Like, it was you, like me, and a couple of like the seniors actually went to the actual transition dinner last year.
There were different circumstances last year. There'll be different circumstances.
Well, I remember
There's
the
also, like,
person
the
who
first-
like demanded the one location to go to, which was Kate Fulkerson, never showed up to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
There's also like the first like day of finals or something like that, as I remember.
Well, I mean, that's like the point of transition dinner is kind of like it's like exiting ASR coming in.
We don't have 2 dinners, Joe. We just.
I mean, if you want to spend that much money,
We need that much money.
it matters how nice you are.
How much are these going to cost?
Well, I mean,
like, if it's your idea, like,
No, I don't want to be responsible for it.
No, I'm just saying, like.
I mean,
What's the location you're thinking about?
We've been freaking talking. We've been talking about it for like 3 weeks on group. So I'm just trying to figure out where, or if we want to keep it chill and not do it and just do a transition. I don't care.
You can, I mean, I'm also okay if you want to go for somewhere that's cheap with like the stand, like with this current, it's like a cheap place to meet, and then a nicer one for the transition. I just don't want to spending like an excessive amount on 2 dinners that are going to be within like a week of each other.
I think that's a reasonable action.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. See, I'm not always against you, Jeff.
Whatever.
So
Okay, are there any other additional comments, points, whatever?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Oh,